Welcome to episode number 2 of SoCal Classic Cars podcast. Pretty exciting, Jay. Here we are, number 2. Wow, this thing is just blowing up. I'm surprised we haven't gone viral yet.
Well, actually, I'm surprised they haven't canceled us yet.
Yeah, is that possible?
Well, I don't know. Apparently, they didn't hate it as much as I did.
Wow, that's tough. We have a tough audience, but it's a special day because we're here with a very special guest.
Special.
And his name is Erik Hansen. Before I introduce you, Erik, please say hi.
Hi.
That was good.
Yeah, look at that.
We promise to bring you people that are interesting with fresh takes, people that are in the car biz doing unique things, and we think Erik is all of that and a bag of chips.
Yeah,
right, Jay?
he's everything that we're not. We're not interesting. We're not insightful.
But sometimes we're funny.
Wow.
Yeah, we can be.
Right? So, you know, let me intro Erik a little bit. He's an all-around car guy. He started his pilgrimage into cars by first obsessing on motorcycles. Well, his wife thought that was a really bad idea. She didn't want to be a widow early on because Erik hadn't made enough money, apparently. So he got into things with 4 wheels, which probably is better for him. He's still here with us, right? That's good. His first car project was he was going to restore an old hot rod, but he realized he'd get to work with new parts with home-built stuff as opposed to fixing bodywork from cars that are 50, 60 years old. And I think he didn't like to get his fingernails dirty. Is that true?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I didn't want a lot of rusty parts laying around in my garage as I started to rip them off of the chassis and all of that. So,
I hate to say it, but that sounds like my dad's garage. Jason, You've seen that mess.
Yeah, how did you not have tetanus?
So, a few other things about Erik, and we'll get into his tetanus if he's got it. I'm not sure he does. But his tax guy said he needed to write off to some of his passion, so he started a small business, which is brilliant. Good tax man. He started a company called 33 Machine. They fabbed and sold parts to home building junkies, just like Erik, people with the same problem, which led Erik to the halls of SEMA because, he was a home building guy and started a business. And next thing you know, he's schlocking his stuff at SEMA, which is great. We appreciate everybody that does that. And then, which led Erik to joining a car show called Car Warriors with the great Jimmy Shine. Jason and I have met him a couple of times.
Yeah, right, yeah.
What do you think
He's
of Jimmy?
even come over here, too.
He has. He surprised us one day.
Yeah, we need to drag him here into the booth.
The problem is, Jason, every time we meet these celebrities, what do they always say to us?
Goodbye.
No?
No, I don't know. What do they say?
How do I know you?
Yeah, right.
Who?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Who are you again?
I think our reputation.
Well, you meet a lot of people.
Right. Well, Erik, I want to welcome you to SoCal Classic Cars podcast. Thanks for being our very special guest.
Well, our first guest, actually.
Wow, that's a great point. So, Erik,
dubious honor, I'm sure.
Let's start with how'd you get into building these home-built cars, and how did you get associated with the gang at Factory 5?
Yeah, so, like you said, I was kind of doing some motorcycle stuff and some fabrication, and it just took a turn, and I just decided that for the, having 2 young kids, and my wife wasn't really that into that part of it, I felt like, hey, let's mix it up a little bit and look into building or restoring a car. And like you said, I went down the path of looking at the option of, hey, I'm go find an older classic car and start working on that, but a lot of them were too big for my garage, and they were too rusty. So for the price points I could afford, so it just made sense to find something that was new, that comes as a full kit that you can open up and build. And, I went and looked at Factory 5, and that just came right out to me. I mean, they're the number 1 kit car manufacturer out there. They're also known as, home-built cars or component cars because you can kind of add whatever you like. Kit cars kind of got a bad moniker, if you will. So, I just started working with those guys and immediately just kind of found a family there and got a ton of support. And I've built 3 or 4 of their cars now. Wow. and have enjoyed every part of it. So
I've seen one of your cars, Erik. It was amazing. That slab side blue 289 Cobra. That was a beautiful car. Is that the one that got away? Are you sad about that?
Not so much. That one, that was a great project. However, it was a little bit like that redheaded girlfriend. All your friends thought she was awesome, but and kept asking why'd you break up with her. But in the end, it was just a ton of maintenance. It was a ton of problems that I introduced by doing 8-stack fuel injection, some other things that came along with that. It just became too much to handle, and so I did end up getting rid of it. I think my favorite car was my first one that I built with Factory 5, and that was my 33 Hot Rod.
Awesome. I've never seen that one. I've seen pictures. It's pretty amazing. So, Jason, I do remember you telling me about a few of those redheaded girlfriends, and there's a couple of them. I question why you kicked them. Well, anyway, what was that?
Well, was it because they were redheads or because they were Scorpios?
I didn't know that Scorpios are a problem.
Oh, well, there was a
of
redheaded Scorpio.
Oh, even worse.
This is a really bad combination.
No, I get that, Eric. It makes complete sense. So, and Jason, I didn't know about the Scorpio thing. So good to learn that, right, Eric?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Why do you, why build cars?
Well, it's a great escape from the normal ins and outs of work every day. If you do have kind of a stressful job and you're busy quite a bit. Also, it's something that I now enjoy doing with my son. So he's involved whenever I work on cars and really takes a big interest. And, it's the ability to, build something that you can express yourself with and just have something that says, I enjoy doing this, and you can drive it around, take it to shows, and it just gives you a great ability to go out there and meet new people around it, and really just have fun. I mean, it's awesome. I enjoy the building process, I think, more than driving or showing cars by far. Like, I don't have the patience to kind of sit around at a show. So for me, I'd rather be wrenching on a car than probably driving it.
But with that new haircut, I think you'd probably be better at the shows. So. Yeah, your car may not look that good, but your hair looks great this week.
Well, that's nice of you to say, Dean.
I
hadn't really thought about it.
So, Eric, you make it sound so damn easy, but let's be honest. Not everything's in the box. There's an engine that's missing. There's probably a drivetrain that's missing. There's a few things like paint and stuff like that. What are the real big challenges that your average Joe is going to face? I mean, it can't be that easy, or is it?
Well, budget's certainly like the first concern, right? So if you're trying to do it on a budget, you typically will go with a donor vehicle. And in that case, you're pulling out older used parts from a donor vehicle like a Fox-bodied Mustang and putting those directly into the Cobra. In fact, that's really the way it's designed. So it can be challenging when you're taking parts from an older car and refurbishing them.
Now, where are you getting these cars? You going to the junkyard, or are you just sourcing one on Craigslist for $2,000 or $3,000? And ripping this stuff out of it and then calling the junkyard to pick up the bones?
Some folks will go out and buy the actual vehicle, like a really good running, like 87 Mustang or something like that. That's, essentially the aesthetics might not be that good. A convertible is a great option because those tops cost so much to replace. People will dump a convertible, and you can just take that drivetrain out of a Mustang and really put it right in the car. And that's the idea of it. You get the rear end, the transmission, and the motor, and then the rest is up to you to kind of customize. But with those parts, you can get into one of those cars for $30,000 to $35,000 totally built, even with paint, if you again find some cost-effective ways of doing it. A lot of folks out there though also enjoy just getting all crate parts, so they'll order from certain manufacturers out there like Jegs or Summit, and they'll bring in a crate motor, crate transmission. Yeah, they'll get that whole running drivetrain brand new and dump it right into the car, and you have a runner. Yeah.
Jason, he makes it sound so easy. Why didn't we ever do one of these? How come you and I never made a car?
Well, I've never been one for wrenching on cars. I like looking at cars. I like driving. I've just never really been a wrencher. I appreciate those that do, but
it's a proud Morash tradition.
I mean, I'm pretty good at changing out the solenoid on my Bronco.
That's true.
We've done that about like 3 times. So
you're saying you didn't?
But I think that's it for me.
So you're saying you didn't get the Morash wrenching gene?
No. I don't see. I'm not a machine guy.
Well, I got to be honest, Dean. You've got quite a collection of unfinished cars in your own bailiwick there, your own arsenal. So when are we starting to wrench on those?
That's a great opportunity. I'm glad all of you guys have volunteered for that. Thank you.
Yeah, right.
But let's bring it back.
I bet there's some cool. I bet there's some cool kits for all those. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. For like the 49 Nash.
Whew. Well, what do you like, Eric? I mean, are you, do you like getting kind of newer parts, or do you like kind of throwing older parts together with these builds, or do you like just like a total mixture of things?
I'm a kind of a budget guy. If I can do it for less and refurbish the parts myself, then I'll do that. It just, to me, it makes more sense. I mean, but if you have, a lot of these guys are, kind of, that are buying these cars and putting them together are retirees, and they've gotten, a certain amount of money that they've budgeted. And a lot of times they'll just buy all the parts that they need brand new and start to build it over a longer period of time. So
reminds me of my childhood when I'd always drag home a carcass of a car, throw it in the driveway, and tell my mom, "Hey, Mom, don't worry about it. It'll be out of here in 2 weeks. I'm going to pull the motor out."
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
4 weeks, a month, 2 months later, Mom would say, "What the hell are you doing?"
Yeah.
And I really thought she would treat me the same way Dad would, that would be okay. But she reminded me that I was not my father, and I wasn't entitled to throw junk cars in the front yard, just like my dad did.
A rite of passage, I'm sure.
Hey, Eric, switch gears a little bit. You just got back from SEMA. Tell us about your observations on what's new in the home car building scene, or whatever you call that, Factory 5, and then, SEMA in general. What did you see? What's new and exciting there?
Yeah, unfortunately, I only got to spend a full day there, but like always, it's kind of a pilgrimage for me to head out to Vegas and drive from Southern California and go out and see my friends at Factory 5 first and foremost, because they kind of become family. They're thriving. They've got a couple new kits and modifications to their existing products that are coming out. So that was really exciting to see. But overall, the show, I mean, is a great indicator that the business is thriving. It's doing great. The aftermarket accessories business is thriving. So, what we saw was really, what was interesting this year, I thought, was the whole social media thing taking a heavy, putting a lot of emphasis on these kids that are out there and just driving content and car builds through social media. And one in particular is this young guy named Stradman. That's what he goes by as his username on YouTube.
Stradman.
Yeah, and he's created such a following. He's got a really interesting story, and he really just started filming his experience with high-end cars by purchasing one at the time when he was almost kind of homeless. That was his whole goal. So he's built this business up. And he was front and center as you walked into the hall at SEMA.
Wow.
And with a purple Toyota Supra, full body kit and everything. And to me, that just kind of indicated where this industry might be going. A lot of the, the older hot rod guys and street rod guys are kind of aging out.
Yep.
And it's interesting to see what the new trends might be.
So we've seen that, right, Jason? We've had a customer that was in his early 20s and runs his business on his phone. He's got a heavily modified Porsche 911, and we've come to learn that his business, he runs it on his phone. He's just selling merchandise. He's got a couple of car clubs that he's schlocking for. He's got stickers all over his car. His car is so heavily modified, I have no idea what's going on there, but he's making a living doing it.
Yeah, hey, hustling. 21 years old, not too bad. But you see this trend throughout the entire landscape. I mean, it doesn't matter what industry. We see this in, fitness industry. We see this car industry. Anywhere that this kind of, plays into, the social media. Like, people love cars. Younger generation is still very much into cars, and it's all over social media. And these influencers are having a really big impact, not only just in the scene, but also on the market as well, because they're getting paid by such and such advertiser to, display this in their videos. Mm-hmm. And now they're like front and center at these big car shows.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what the hell Jason said. I'm the old guy in the room, so I'm sure you guys understand, which is a real good thing. But the world's changing, and it's not just about selling parts, right? Or selling cars.
Yeah.
It's about selling, sometimes the marketing is the whole thing.
It's a look. Well,
yeah, and it's getting advertisers to pay, to provide the experience to customers.
Well, I think I saw somewhere now that, social media influencing as a business as a whole in an industry is now $4.5 billion wide. I don't fact check me on that one, but I'm sure it's definitely a multi-billion-dollar industry. I'm sure that's throughout the car market. We were talking to our neighbor at Rosso Corsa.
Yep.
Hans over there. He's our next door neighbor.
We should have him on. He's got a great accent, Jason.
Yeah,
we got to get him on.
But that was so interesting to tell because he's a high end dealer. Mm-hmm. He he's got people just coming in to not buy the cars, but just to take videos with his cars and his cool motorcycles as he got in there.
Yeah, he sells exotic cars. He's got to kick people out because they're trying to use his business to, generate clicks or whatever they're selling.
Yeah, views, absolutely. Subscribers and views. And that's going back to this young kid, Stradman. I mean, that's what he's done. He's created a ton of subscribers. And I mean, I'm hearing numbers of, 12 million a year in revenues that are coming just from him out there posting videos.
Crazy. Well, we got to get that guy on for sure. Add him to our list, Jason.
Yeah, Stradman. I wonder where he's at.
Is
he in SoCal?
He's one of a few. I do have contacts that know
Great.
him. So.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, like Eric, we'll have to bribe him to join us. That'll be fine. We're not above that.
What were you excited about as far as Factory 5 was concerned? What do they got coming out?
They've got a new take on their 65 Daytona Coupe, which uses that existing chassis for that model, and they're going to be putting a new modern version body, their own body design on top of it. What was really interesting is they had the chassis alone there with a LS12 sitting in it on the showroom floor, which drew a lot of attention.
LS12?
An LS12, yeah, that's Australian take on, they build their own block, their own heads, and then you take all the internals from a regular LS motor and put it together from there. But yeah, 12-cylinder engine, and it's really kind of a showpiece for them. But most of those cars, I think, are just going to take the Coyote, the 5-liter Coyote motor as a crate drop-in, and you'll have an amazing car. But my son is super excited about that one. He wants to build it.
But the problem with the Coyote motor, at least 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, those things are really, really expensive. So when you're talking about a budget build, it doesn't quite fit in. I mean, how much what's the cheapest you could source a Coyote motor for?
Well, I mean, some people are circumventing the whole Coyote name and getting the same motor out of the trucks, right? So it's essentially the same motor, just built with different heads and things like that, and taking that motor and putting it in there. So yeah, the Coyotes are, 10 grand's a good number to kind of just throw a Coyote in with all of the adapters and things that might be needed for other applications. But yeah, when you build like a fully blueprinted engine, carbureted or even fuel injected, and you get done with all of that, we were kind of doing the math on my friend's build, and he ended up going with the Coyote because when all is said and done, it was about the same price.
Wow.
Yeah.
Surprising.
Yeah.
Eric, let's switch gears a little bit. Talk about you as not quite a movie star. How about a TV star? You were on Car Warriors, which that show didn't last that long, but I watched it. I thought it was pretty good. It was a competition show where it was kind of a race, right? Whoever got the car running first.
Yeah.
And off you go. You were broke up into 2 separate teams, and Jimmy Shine was the host, right? So tell us about how you got involved in that.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I'd like to thank the 150 or so people that actually watched it. It was truly exciting, but for us, it was really a take on a charity build-off competition. So Factory 5 donated 2 hot rod kits. Me and my buddy Jeff Miller helped prep those for light paint and body work before the show started. And when the curtain came up, we had 48 hours to build, and everybody ran to their chassis, and we had crate motors and transmissions. And what was nice about it is we had like a whole mini mart behind us of just parts and components that we could throw into this car within this time frame.
Wow.
And it was mayhem. It was just crazy. I think I stayed awake for about 65 hours or something like that straight. Yeah. And when we were done, we were exhausted. And the build-off was, interestingly enough, the build-off came out to a tie. But our competition's car ran a little bit better and had a nicer motor and all of these things due to little build-offs that we had within the competition. And little competitions that we had. And so, they ended up winning. It was 2 great cars. And they were auctioned off for charity. Great time. Jimmy Shine was a great host, and we just had a really fun time doing it. So I would never do it again.
Sounds like you're still
brutal.
Exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted hearing about it, Eric.
Yeah.
Sounds like one of those overhauling shows where they're going to build a car in a week. That's brutal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it like, the filming process of all those things?
Well, let me just say that there's not much reality in reality TV. I think we got experience of that firsthand, and that's okay. I mean, we want it to be a feel-good thing because the whole competition was made to benefit cystic fibrosis, which Dave Smith has one of his children have that disease, and so it was a great way to actually give back to him and his family along with that foundation. So great experience there. we had a lot of fun. But the producers and the camera crew, they're really they really push themselves to build drama, right? And there wasn't much to be had, but when something did arise, they would rush in. I mean, immediately.
Start a fight.
Yeah, absolutely. They loved it. So
just push the button.
Everybody was mic'd up all the time, and if they sensed any sort of anger or
Yeah.
God damn it, Eric! You forgot the fuel pump. No wonder why we can't get any gas.
Well, one of our guys accidentally drilled a hole in the fuel tank by putting in the rear kind of firewall
So
in the
that's
trunk.
typically bad, right?
Yeah, it was not good. And,
After he'd put the gas in it or before?
Yeah. Well, we didn't know until we filled it up, so that was the interesting thing. And then it was immediately finger pointing, although we all knew who did it.
Hilarious.
And it was really funny, and whatever. We ended up finishing no problem, but
Great.
there are times like that they really like to build off of that. That was the whole thing.
Was there like an added pressure? I mean, you're on camera working on a car. It's a whole lot different when you're just relaxing in your garage with your kid, working on a car, and you got a camera pointed at you. What's that like?
Well, there's a ton of pressure, and because you have that 48 hours straight, I mean, you really start to get tired at the end. And I mean, I remember standing on a lift. I don't think anything was OSHA approved at this particular show, but standing on a lift somewhere at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and I hadn't slept for probably 20 or 30 hours, and I just was like, felt like at any moment I'm going to fall off of this thing,
Pass
6-7
out.
feet down to the floor, and I'll be done, and that would be the end of the show. But so it was really a little scary at times when your vision would start to go blurry, or you'd start seeing elves running across the set. So that's when you try to take a nap and your brain won't let you. It definitely crushes you.
It's like Le Mans, but car building.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think what Jason was really wanted to go down the rabbit hole on is when this podcast takes off and blows up, and you can see how dynamic this is.
Yes.
Right, Eric?
Yes.
What is this?
The viewer board? Well, where is the viewer board?
Yeah,
I guess.
we'll get one of those.
Okay.
That and the green screen, right, Jay? That's
The
we've ordered
green
that.
screen.
Yes.
Live from Paris.
So do you think?
Whoa,
do you
whoa.
think that's the next television show for us? Should we call Discovery now, or should we wait just a little bit?
Yeah, I'd vet out some of the bugs, like the fact that we're, sitting at a circular table in a small office.
So that's not that exciting?
Yeah, the green screen might be huge. I mean, you could do the show from anywhere.
Well, yeah,
like,
for
visually.
sure. Well, there's no art on the walls yet in our studio, so we could totally put up a green screen.
It's better that way.
Yeah.
It's a white.
But then I would actually have to do my hair and
Yeah. Well,
makeup and
Jason hasn't had a haircut, but anyway, we
shower.
digress.
What?
So, should we?
Why are you making me do that?
Oh, which part? The shower?
What's hanging out with Jimmy Shine like?
You know what? He's a really, really cool guy. We just enjoyed hanging out and talking with him. And now I run into him here and there at SEMA or whatever show and just bump in and just say hello.
Does he recognize you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. No,
You're
we
doing
had some
better
time. We were both waiting to get into the halls of SEMA a few years ago when I built that electric car. And he was, we just sat and talked for a while. And we didn't really bring up the show because, again, I was on the losing team. So there's no hard feelings there. Wink, wink. And, yeah, no, he's a great guy. He's super chill. I think that he brings a lot of insane talent when it comes to fabrication to the show.
Well, I love
mean,
the style
incredible.
of his builds.
Yeah.
Just that, you can recognize his build on hot rods.
Mm-hmm.
And that day he came over to surprise visit us, he came over in what was that, a 34
Yeah.
Ford truck,
Real slammed and bagged.
bagged and slammed truck that was just, wow. It was a incredible build, but he's got a very unique
Anybody
style.
over 6'1" could not fit in that
No.
car. No way.
Yeah.
So, Eric, the thing that I'm intrigued about is really what is the hardest thing about building a car? I mean, you really haven't let on, but is it the build itself? Is it not pissing off the wife? Is it ignoring your family for, months and months? Is it sourcing good quality work? I mean, if you had to put your finger on one or two things, what would you say? I mean, most of these people are sitting there going, yeah, that's something I want to do. I'm ready to go. I've been talking about that with my friends or my son or whatever, but what's the hardest thing?
Yeah, I'd say probably paint. I
Paint.
think, yeah, I mean, paint it's all about prep, and what most people don't realize is how much that costs, not just material, but just how much time. I mean, I've gone in, and like I said, my good friend Jeff Miller has painted all my cars, and quite honestly, It is such a process. It's backbreaking. It's long and hard hours. And
Did you try to do a lot of the prep work yourself to save you money?
I did.
Is that
I
typical?
Did. Yeah. And when I did the hot rod, I pretty much prepped and primered it with another friend of mine who worked on overhauling, and so we had that was just kind of a fun thing. But then I took it to Jeff to shoot it, and then when I did the Cobra, which was definitely one of the nicest paint jobs I've ever
That was beautiful.
I mean. Yeah, I mean, we really took our time, and I tried to do as much as I could, and just to be a part of the process. I think it's important to kind of, be all parts of the build if you can. And so that was a good experience, but it's definitely, you're talking, 10 grand, in a lot of cases. I mean,
Sure.
anywhere from a Cobra, you're looking at 6,500 and up, and then some folks obviously can spend a lot more, but it starts around $5,000 at least, and it's just in materials.
At least, right? Yeah.
It's crazy.
And that's not even for that takes a risk in its own right.
Yeah.
As we know, watching some of our customers and being in the car culture, just people who skimp out on a paint job.
Right.
Right. You get what you pay for.
You do.
Yeah, we've seen literally hundreds of cars here in the last 4 years that we've been in business of SoCal Classic Car Storage. And quite frankly, that is the biggest thing that I see wrong with a lot of the cars that people purchase or own. Mm-hmm. It's just the quality of the body work and then the paint on top of that body work. And there's no substitute. But to do it right on a lot of these cars, we're talking $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 because the opposite is true of an old 50-year-old car versus a factory 5 car, right?
Right.
I call it the sins of the past. Bondo, 3 inches thick, holes, and you'll find all kinds of stuff in there that these body shops plugged holes with. Mm-hmm. Paper, cardboard, you name it. So it gets really, really expensive to do it right.
Well, that's where the art of car building comes in. I was just kind of thinking you should have a book, Eric. It should be called like Guerrilla Car Building.
Wow.
Budget car building.
Budget car building.
The guerrilla side is really interesting too, because if you plan to have a car at SEMA, you learn really quick there is never enough time, and no matter how much time you prep for or put ahead and budget for, you're working on it down to the last second it goes on the trailer, and even when you get it off the trailer in Vegas. So it's something where I've done that a couple of times now, and it can be brutal. When you call on all your resources to say, hey, look, we got this, let's get this going, and now you're transporting it. Yeah, you're transporting it back and forth to paint or to the mechanic shop or whatever to figure out these little deals that need to be fixed. And
so are you biting your nails until you unveil it, pretty much?
It can be a little tedious. Yeah.
Hey, speaking of builds, you met one of our customers at SEMA. You know him, Chris. Mm-hmm. He unveiled his '69 Mustang that he's been working on. Mm-hmm. Not a kit car, but he's put a lot of time and energy into fabbing that car. It's a pretty awesome build from what I've seen.
Yep.
What did you think of that, and how does that compare and contrast to a home-built factory 5 style car? What he did there?
Well, I mean, he took an older 69 Mustang
69.
fastback. I mean, and he went to town on it and did amazing, like almost all the work himself. It was really a nice build, and it has to be because it was in the Toyo Tires booth, and they really bring the top-notch stuff in there. And you could just tell from the ground up it was well thought out. It had to have been body off. He had the whole chassis powder coated, and it was just a really nice build. It wasn't too over the top, but it looked like something you would just take right out on the track and just tear up. So I mean, it was a great representation of a performance car mixed with a really nice home build.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
Yeah.
And Chris loves to track cars, right, Jay? He's always autocrossing. I can't talk.
Autocrossing.
Mm-hmm. Is that a... Yeah, that could
That's
be a
where
new
you
event.
automatically be crass.
That's for the rich, super rich.
I think I'm very crass. I'm very crass. But we love Chris as a customer, and I spoke to him the other day, and he's very willing to join us as a guest, and so we're excited about having him on here. Uh-huh. But he loves to autocross everything from Lambos to Mustangs.
Yeah, he's cool.
Vipers.
He's cool. He's cool guy.
He's cool.
I like that guy.
Don't lie, Eric.
Now,
I feel like Eric's lying to us about one thing.
Yeah. Well,
No, do you want to know what I think he's lying about?
What?
You were going to ask me, right? I think he used the decorative towels as shop rags. I think he got in trouble a lot.
No way.
When he was doing this build.
Using using decorative towels as shop rags is suicide.
I think he used his wife's decorative soap.
I don't know. He was able to pull off an executive decision today.
That's
so
true.
I don't think he did.
Yeah, I'm lucky to have a great wife. That's where it begins, really, is to have an understanding partner or spouse that is like, you know what, he loves this. This is what he does to kind of take stress off. He doesn't, do it, during family time, or he kind of waits until the kids are in bed and goes out and, makes his noise in the garage there building cars. I mean, it's a balancing act, and it's important. And it's so I think that what you do when you go to these shows, and Factory 5 has a big one out here in SoCal, in Huntington Beach. And when you go and you talk to these people, these are mostly happily married people. You don't see a lot of divorced folks that are building these cars, quite frankly, because it takes a lot of understanding, and you have to have that kind of relationship to pull it off.
I'm calling BS, Jay. I think he cleaned parts on the kitchen table, on the countertop, in the kitchen, and got in trouble. But he's trying to make it out like, oh, no problem.
No, curing your powder coat in the family oven is not an issue.
Okay, so you can't.
They love that when they go to put the turkey in, and there's a couple of brake calipers.
He looks too happy to have made these mistakes. Just get back on track here. At SEMA there was a little bit of controversy. A beautiful build. I think it was a Jaguar E-Type by Chip Foose. Talking about SoCal restorers. We talk about Jimmy Shine, and we talk about Chip Foose. What did you think of that E-Type build that he unveiled? I forget what year it was. Was it 67?
Or no, it was 70.
74 E-Type?
Yeah, 74, I think.
74 E-Type? Yeah. What did you think of that?
I was attracted to it immediately. I saw it out of the corner of my eye. I had no idea Chip built that car, and I walked up to it and I just said, this is a great. I mean, when you look at it, you see it's a great interpretation with some of that car. He didn't ruin the classic lines of it, but it kind of showed a little bit of a modern touch, which is obviously the point here. He's not just restoring a car. He's putting his little, waving his magic wand over it. And I thought it was gorgeous. I mean, the wheels, I think, were the part of the controversy. They were a little big, but they were gorgeous and had to be custom built.
So what was the controversy that you're mentioning, Jason?
Well, I think people had problem with the spokes.
The wheels?
Yeah, I mean, it was elaborate machine work. You could see the spiral geometries that were in the spokes of the car. I mean, it took. How long did it take for each one of those wheel rims to get done?
I'll say it. I hated the wheels. We saw Jason and I looked at the original rendering that Chip Foose did on that car, and the wheels that he had on the rendering were much better, in my opinion. But he's Chip Foose, so we shouldn't. Yep. It's very risky business here to be sitting in judgment of anything that he does when it's so incredible. So I said it there. Do you think Chip is out now as a guest?
Well, maybe we shouldn't say that we hate his work.
Chip's cool.
Hate his
you can
wheels
disagree
here.
with his stuff.
Yeah,
He'll
maybe
be cool
I didn't
with
like the wheels.
Well, I can say
hate is such a strong word.
Right, probably not a good idea.
The other thing that was really interesting, kind of a big draw at the show, was the new Vette, right? And so maybe we could talk about that just for a second, because what you're seeing here is a major shift by a very successful brand within that company that it was a bit polarizing. I'll be honest. It was the car is when you look at it, you say this is really kind of an inexpensive looking world-class car.
Yeah, McLaren. It looks like a McLaren.
It looks like a McLaren or an Acura and kind of a Ferrari put together, but it also looks. At the same time, it looks like the C7 when it comes to the rear end and a lot of the square and angular lines. So a lot of people were put off by that. It looked kind of bloated in the back. The design looked like it wasn't really finished. And so, there's a lot of people that have been waiting for this car. Obviously, all the mags are just going crazy over it. It's on the cover of every auto magazine.
Yeah, for sure.
So what will be interesting to see is, based on the way it was received at the show, whether or not they decide to keep both lines going, right? Like, if they're going to keep building, are they going to keep building the C7s as a front engine car, and they're going to keep, working on this new mid-engine design, and which one will win out and which one will carry on?
Well, Jason and I both talked about it. It's like Coke and New Coke, right? Or classic Coke.
If you can afford to have both, that's great.
Well, I think the C7 actually they've stopped production. There was the last one came off the line, so there is no more front engine Corvettes being built.
BS
okay, well that answers that.
I think they're going to bring back classic Corvette.
But I guess that's the consensus, right? Is what defines a Corvette, and based off of classic definition of what makes a Corvette from C1 to C7, it's not really a Corvette.
Right.
It's a fun drive.
Okay.
I like the car. I personally think it's great. But
I'll play devil's advocate with both you guys. I think what's happening to Corvette is, and Chevy in particular, is the same thing that's happening to a lot of industries. You've got to stay relevant with the changing market segment. And the market segment is people in their 30s and 40s that have no interest in, C2s and C3s and maybe even these C7s and Z06s. They want something that makes them look like they're participating with these exotic cars. And if you can't look the part and you look like you're driving an old stodgy American car, then you don't want to be seen in one. So I think they're trying to attract and maintain this relationship with younger drivers. That's not easy. So it is a huge gamble.
But I like how they're undercutting.
I like the way they thought through that, if that's what they were thinking.
Well, I like how they're undercutting the market, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely, right.
It's basically like an entry level supercar.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Great point.
that's really what it is.
Great point.
And the history of Corvette has always been that Corvette has all been about affordability.
Yeah.
Corvette has never been unaffordable. Maybe C7 kind of got to that point where it was kind of getting crazy with the Z06 and the Callaway models, and everything was kind of getting out of control. But it seems to me that at least they keep the value is high, the performance is really good, and let's face it. I mean, how can let's even talk about performance, right? I mean, Corvette used to be a car that could perform and was always out on race day. But how far can you get with a front engine car when you're trying to compare yourself
I think
to
they
a
reached the limit,
Ferrari or a McLaren
right?
720S or a Lamborghini Huracan? You can't compete with those with a front engine car. It's just not possible.
I think, what you're saying is they reached that limit. I mean, they did with the latest ZR1, right? I mean, the thing was almost too much for a front engine car. So,
but here's the other thing: you cannot compete without a budget. So if you're going to sell a $60,000 car, you'll never compete, in my opinion, with a $200,000, $300,000 McLaren or a Lamborghini.
well,
Now, I will say on the flip side, Ford's done a pretty good job with their new Shelby, which really has been, just incredibly well reviewed and competing with all those cars in many categories.
Yeah.
But from a pure speed standpoint, 0 to 60 and 0 to 100, those cars, none of them compete. And so but on the track, I will say that Ford Mustang and others have done a pretty good job for under 100,000. I don't know what.
right, but when you
cost.
start to get to that upper echelon of racing, the pinnacles, right, that's where your mid-engine cars are coming in. I mean, they're all 458s and McLarens out there racing against each other, and this puts them into that market. And I can only imagine the models, the performance models that will be coming out on top of that C8 model. So I mean, I think it's a way for them to kind of bridge
Superchargers,
to get
manual transmissions, convertibles,
just
all this stuff.
the Z06
is
is ZR1 type levels of race car, and but what will be interesting is now they're going to have, like Ford, right? You've got the Mustang, and they've actually got their GT, the GT40, the GT, right? Just the
GT.
Ford GT. So that's almost like a replica, or
Sure. So
it's almost like So that's what they're trying to do, I think, is really go after the GT.
right.
At that level of racing and compete there.
So Eric, last question. This comes up a lot with people that I talk to, and it certainly is one that I'm not clear enough on. What's the difference between a factory 5 approach to home car building, say, and a Superformance Hellbank car? I saw a lot of their cars, I suspect, in that Ford versus Ferrari movie that Jason and I saw last night, which was awesome. I mean, I'm thumbs way up on that movie. So I assume they were the primary supplier of Cobras and GT40 lookalike cars, because there's no way they were using original cars for that movie, at least from my perspective.
No,
And
that
based
would
on
be
everything-
silly, with the
based
current
on everything.
values. Yeah.
So what's the difference between these two approaches?
Factory 5 is kind of, build your dream. It's come in at a low price point and be very very much a part of the build process. Whereas with Superformance, I mean, they're really going for that nostalgic. We'll hand you a fully built chassis and ready, a roller, essentially, a car. You choose the engine configuration that you want, and we'll put it in there for you.
Wheels, tires, you choose those.
Yeah, well, the motor as well. I mean, like you're the motor, the transmission, the rear end, all of those
But they
things.
build it.
They do it all for you, right?
You do the menu thing and you pick stuff, and then they custom build it for you.
It's very hands off, and it's so essentially you're paying in the hundreds of thousands of dollars for that, that type of a build, and they're good builds. I mean, they're great cars, and they're also kind of deemed a continuation series, Cobra or Daytona or however they're doing it. I mean, they really got the licensing, I believe, from Shelby to build those cars, and that's what a lot of people want. They want kind of this authenticity, things that'll keep the car holding its value. Factory 5 is about building, having your own project, building it the way you want, without any sort of stringent requirements around nostalgic aspects or anything like that. So it's very freeform, and therefore again it's more entry level. So it's and you're really building an experience when you build a car like that. When you're just buying a car, I mean, a lot of people can just go out and buy a car.
Right.
But to sit there and say, you know what, I built this and I made my own choices, and I really enjoyed the process, and I used a lot of resources within the community to kind of help me, put this together. I mean, that's building an experience versus just buying a car.
So great, Eric. Those are two awesome contrasting approaches, and we'll have Lance in here in a future date. He's the owner of Hillbank Motorsport.
We're making a wish list here.
To-do
as we
list.
Go,
Yeah.
right?
This is not.
They're already moving on to the next one before they get
listening
finished
now?
with me. I
We
guess.
got Chip Foose.
I wonder if they're listening now. They're like, I ain't gonna be on this show.
What?
Well, they're like, this Eric
Wait,
guy's a
please,
bomb,
can
so
you be on this
let's
show?
figure out our next guest quickly
We
here
just
before
gotta
this
get our
thing takes.
bribery thing going on.
Right.
All right, Jason, close it up. Wrap it up here.
Well, okay,
Bring it
Eric.
home.
Anything else you want to add, Eric? Anything we may have missed in our discussion? Thank you so much for taking your time.
No, I really, really appreciated it, and I'm really proud to be a part of the SoCal Classic team. It's been a great experience to come down and be in the car community on a daily basis and just hang out and talk about cars. And I mean, I basically tell anybody to come down and check out the showroom floor. We've got some great cars in here,
Right,
and it's just a great place to
Great plug, Eric.
Yeah,
say
well
hello.
done. Yeah,
I mean, I
yeah.
know I'm not trying to plug the business.
Well
I make
done.
nothing from it, but it's you've built a really great business
Thank you,
here,
Eric. It's
and I've
kind.
watched it from the ground up. It's been awesome.
Well,
I think it's all my doing though. So
I'd take
Just
credit.
saying.
Good job, Jason.
came up with the idea.
Well, anyway, we're just so thankful to have you today. It's been awesome. This is a really, really great topic, and you did a fantastic job.
Yeah, then thank you so much again for listening to us. Thank you for taking time out of your day, wherever you may be, in your car, on your radio, at work. Anyway, you can find our podcast on Google Play, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, and other major podcast outlets. This is the SoCal Classic Cars podcast. I'm Jason Morash. We were here with Erik Hansen and also our co-host, Dean Morash. Thank you so much for listening in, and happy driving.